Uh, Forgot to open the camera. Why is that on my face? Hold on, let me clear this up. 1 second here. Got to clean that stuff up on my name. If I can't figure it out, what is this? We don't need that right there. That's too much real estate. What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. We're got a big show today lined up. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If my microphone's breaking your speakers, let me know. But I've been having issues with this microphone. So if anybody knows of a better microphone, let me know so I can get it. Happy Sunday 6. Yes, happy Sunday to you too. I have what I think is a good YouTube kind of information guy. Can I give you his name? Sure. Let me see. Jonathan Kim Moss Golf. Give me a sec. Let me look that up real quick if I know him. Okay, yeah, I have seen his stuff. I haven't really dived into too much of him, but I'll definitely check him out and give you my opinion. From what I can see, he does some pretty good stuff, so I'll definitely check it out for you. Just want to know if he's legit or not. Okay, I'll check him out for you. I'll let you know. Minnesota leads the Lakers 3-1. Yes, that was brutal. I watched the game. It is tough, man. Watching that game, I think Ant-Man is he's on a new level. But, I'm still rooting for my Lakers. You never know. They could come back from nowhere. C and E hype. Yes, cause and effect hype. Welcome. Kevin, in your opinion, why is there so much variation of the right heel impact position? For example, Mo Norman versus Justin Thomas. There is, there's so many different ways to skin a cat. And as long as you can do it the same way over and over again, there's no real universal correct way. It's all based on your compensations and can you do it over and over again? And then your misses, how bad are your misses? So, the golf swing, there's so many ways to do it. And there's so many people that have tried to, preach a certain way, and it could work for a small percentage of people. But, we're just average golfers. We get out once or twice a week if we're lucky. So, I would just shy away from trying to find a certain model and go after that. It's a game of lottery, in my opinion. Tim Yater, you're good. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thank you. Welcome, Tibor. And have we started? Yes, we have. And how can we submit videos? Blake, you can send them to info@liongolfacademy.com. Make sure it's face on and down the line for me, please. That way I can get both perspectives to help you guys out. And if you have any notes, it's not required, but notes definitely help me out. So let's get started. We got 10 of you today, and I won't be in next Sunday. I'm teaching again down in San Diego, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. So I'm trying to find a weekday time to do a makeup stream. So just keep your eye on that. All right, this gentleman's name is Jim. Hey, Coach, thanks for taking a look at my swing. I've been playing for about 20 years, most recreationally, but I'm starting to take it more seriously. 39, 5'5", 160, in decent shape, and just getting back into working out. No major limitations, just trying to build a swing that works with my body. I play Pursuit C510 forged cavity backs with dynamic gold 300 shafts. My 7-iron swing speed is 83. I recently switched from an interlock to an overlap grip with the club more in my fingers, okay? Struggle with toe strikes, pulls, occasional hooks, and overall inconsistent contact. Really appreciate what you do for the community. All right, let's take a look. Make sure nobody's coming. Okay, so we have him on the screen swinging. Pretty decent swing. I do see that forward press. How are we going to compensate with that forward press? Let's take a look at the down the line. Yeah, you make a pretty good move at it. I do see where the contact issues could come from. So we do see a little bit of loss of posture, some balance struggles. And you can tell, if you look at your swing if you can get your swing on anything, and just look at this area right here. So you want to look at the way the feet react. So we see the feet are fairly good. We see that roll, see that inside of the right heel kind of pull up the whole inside. So we're having some weight distribution issues on the way back. We'll have to see what that is caused by. And then right at impact, we try and plant goal. We're trying to push off in this direction, this way. But watch this past impact. Right there. See how it kind of bobbles around a little bit? So we do have some, balance issues. So we'll have to look at, most of the weight is finishing on the toes there on the left heel. So it's going to be the left foot. So we'll have to look at why that is. Let's zoom out again. And let's take a gander. I'm going to try and use some new words. Either they're made up words We got to make up some new words here. Okay, so let's first take a look at the setup. Let's see what type of setup we have. I noticed you do four press. So, when you do have that four press motion, you can four press by activating your tilt or your turn. And it looks like to me the upper body is turning to get to that four press, which will create some alignment issues and also path issues when you take it back. And we're going to try and stick to one color so we can get through these pretty quickly. And when we take a look at your centeredness, let's draw it from both arches since we're kind of in a closed position. All right, so you're definitely a toe-based player. So most of the weight is starting on your toes, and that could cause some weight distribution issues. Now, if you're toe-based, typically I've seen toe-based go a little bit higher on their secondary plane line, but we do take that club below that primary plane line. You can see it fluttering back over here, get to the top position. So we are getting to that secondary plane now pretty good. We do have a loss of shoulder tilt to get us there. And I have to look at the face on. It might be a little bit of a reverse going on here, but we do suffer from steep from this position. We start to go into our posture, starting to raise up. And you can see as we strike it, we're kind of coming up and moving into the golf ball. So definitely from this side angle, we start to see some weight distribution issues, some centeredness issues, and rerouting of that weighting. So it looks like you're trying to return back to a centered position. You're right there. So if we clear up these lines, we can see like the arches are supporting more of that center of the hips. So you are trying to redistribute that weight. So you're fighting the weight, which doesn't really do good for your path. So this is that four press we're looking at right here. So some people can make four presses work, but just have to look at, what are you able to do with that four press? So we have our shoulder tilting. We have the center of our shoulders matching the hands, which is good. But as you can see, we do have this giant forward press that now we have to figure out how to either carry this down into the golf ball or lose some of that angle. And most of us try to lose some of that angle because if we naturally get our sequencing correct, you want to probably increase your forward press naturally by 5 to 10 degrees. So if you're starting with, let's call that 20 degrees, and you naturally increase it 5 to 10, now you got 25 to 30 degrees of forward press. That's going to be severe de-lofting of the club. It's going to be hard to get up ball up in the air. So you might have to, throw to release some of that forward press. But we'll see how you compensate. So let's draw from the golf ball straight up, back of the ball, straight up to the sky. All right, so that ball position is also well on your right shoulder. So let's take a look at what we do. We get it's a slow motion video. There we go. Okay, so you see immediately we got like a little sway going on here. So if we put a little line back there, we can see that we do sway over. And what this might be trying to do is get in that ball position now to match up with your centeredness. So it looks like you're trying to do that correction early on to give yourself a fighting chance. And with that sway, there's also a slight raise up of your body. You can see your head height come on up. You do a really good job of turning though. Look how much turn you can establish. So your hands are doing pretty good. They're keeping out in front of that center of the chest as you get that turn, which is great. Now the sequencing. Let's see how we do with the sequencing. So we're going to draw a blue line. By the way, we don't have a blue line name. So that's our next goal as a community. Figure that out. Okay, so we try and get the weight distribution over to that left side. But yeah, you can see you're starting to lose some of that angle. You make it work though. I mean, you can see you're returning back to that same forward press, but the hands do get slightly engaged down at impact. So, this is it's tough because it's clear that you can play with this setup, but this will cause some issues because your centeredness is ahead of the golf ball, which is fine. But as you get down into impact, there's going to be some, either holding off the release so you don't just rope hook this thing, or letting go of that angle a little bit too soon. So I would suggest, if this was my student, just to give yourself some more spacing and some more room at your setup. Now, if you like to forward press, that's okay, but let's just cut that forward press down a little bit and move that golf ball position accordingly. So from this point of view, I would suggest moving that golf ball right about here. So maybe one golf ball. Bring the hands slightly back. So, if you want to carry some forward press, that's okay. but you need, reduce that shoulder tilt. So then your hands are connected to that new hand position. And we have a little bit of forward press. So that'll give you at least a little bit, 1 or 2 frames to work with. And definitely your setup. So you might want to look at getting a more balanced setup. So from the face on, you're probably looking at something where the heels, the arches of the heels are a little bit closer to where these two lines intersect. So you can see right now they're intersecting here, and that's going to be your centeredness. So as you strike the golf ball, you can actually see your hips will try to find that centeredness right there. Let's back it up. Right there. So you see how the hips are trying to find the centeredness here. So you just want to feel like it's more, balanced, so you're not fighting the weighting. So hopefully that helps you out. And just let your swing evolve from that new setup. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Hi, all. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, joining Melbourne. Never been to Australia. I need to get down there. 11 a.m. Monday here in the heart of the Sandbelt. Hopefully you're not skipping work on me and going to get in trouble. After that, submitting that video, I watched a whole bunch of your videos, and I've started bringing the hands back towards the center. I'm getting a lot better loft, but it's still having contact issues. Yeah, so, keep this in mind. If you're so used to setting up the way you have, just because you change the setup doesn't necessarily mean your swing's going to automatically switch. You also have to address some of these swing issues. So for this gentleman that we just watched, one of the in-swing principles for him once he gets that setup changed is to not having to sway over to get that golf ball to the center of his body. He can just maybe more turn with his hips. So always want to address your pre-swing, which is your setup, and then your in-swing. So you have to look at your cause and effect that the old setup created, and then look at the biggest thing that old setup created in your swing and address that along with it. And then it's just like, taking turns of just tightening things up. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, D. How about Dory Blue from Finding Nemo? Okay, well, I think we have to do a post, right? A community post to see what we choose. All right, next up, we have Gunga. Thank you for the free swing analysis. I'm sending my videos for review. I have been playing golf for 15 years, no physical restrictions. Current handicap is close to a 7. Lowest handicap I was able to reach was a 4, which was 2 years ago. I have been pulling my iron shots a lot lately. I appreciate you in advance. All right, let's take a look. That's a pretty good looking swing there. See down the line? Okay, yeah, see the pulls. A little steep coming on down. All right, let's take a look at this one. It's a little bit slower. Yeah, I see the pulls. Okay, so it's a little path issue. Let me see. Can we zoom in on those numbers? Super zoom here. Zeros. All right, nothing really helpful there. A bunch of zeros. That's like tour numbers right there. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on with our path. By the way, I got a great suggestion for one of the videos this week. I'm probably going to pre-record some videos about ways to decide what your natural swing ought to be. So I have to do some research on that to make sure I'm not misleading you. But I think that's a great video idea. All right, so a little bit heel based. Yeah, we see the disconnection already. So very little. But hey, look at Freddie Couples. He did this exact same thing, right? So he lifted his arms and then turned at the top. So let's see if we are able to turn at the top. So we kind of turn at the top, but we also stand up. And when we stand up, we start losing our posture. And we can see the left shoulder tilt doesn't match our initial setup, which will then raise up. And everything goes up and up because we're coming out of our posture. But how do we reroute this? So your hands are slightly ahead of the centeredness. So the butt of the club is slightly ahead, which is close enough for you-know-who. And then we come on down. So yeah, we're fighting that steepness. And this is where the pulls will come in. And also the occasional misses as well. And the exit path. The exit path is pretty decent. So we see it coming right on in. So we do have a steeper to low exit. And okay, so we're definitely coming up a little bit. Let's look at the face on one more time. Clear these up. That's pretty good. Got a slight forward press, and we see our shoulder tilt is a little bit further down because of that forward press. So again, we've got this going on here. So we know we don't turn initially with our hips, which could be a limitation issue. We do a good job turning though. Hands don't get too far back. We're coming on down. We're trying to reroute. We get down to impact. We do have a accentuated shoulder tilt, which will then shift where our hands need to be out front. So we are delaying ourselves. So you can see that triangle is more connected on your right shoulder. Sorry about all these lines. And as we strike it, yeah, so the hands are slightly delayed. I think this one definitely, setup looks okay. It would be curious to see if you can remain in the setup and just engage the hips a little bit more to start with, just to help you keep it on that lower plane line. Because the rest of the sequencing looks okay. But as you take this club back, we see the initial rolling of the hands. And remember, rolling of the hands this way releases the pressure on your left side here. And when it releases the pressure on your left side, you typically want to just come on up with that. So, I would just think about, thumbs staying more out in front as you engage that tilt. So right about here, the hands would be a little bit lower, which will then at least keep that club either at that line or maybe even slightly below, which is okay. But then the most important thing is that left shoulder will be working down. So then you can stay in your posture. Now, if you find that you can't do that, then it might be a range of motion issue. So you might have to just adjust how you set up, and there are shortcuts to this too. But yeah, you see those hands fall behind the ball a little bit and then have to activate right there. So it's a pretty good swing. I would just do those small little changes in your setup. I'm sorry, not your setup, in your initial part of the takeaway where you feel like the left shoulder goes down a little bit more. If you want to record yourself and do that, and then see if you are losing your balance a little bit, if it's hard for you to do, if you feel this pretty big stretch on the left side, if you physically can't do it, then you have to make some adjustments. And even if you want to preset yourself closed, so everything's more closed to kind of steal some turn on the way back, that's okay too. There's a shortcut way, there's the textbook way. But this is your swing, so just make those adjustments accordingly. And if you want to do that, send me an update. Either leave me a message in the comment section to let me know how that feels, or if you want to send me an updated video in a couple of weeks, go ahead and do that. Let me see here. What I find amazing that your body reacts to your swing, meaning that you want to hit the ball, but the body may naturally react. What I find amazing is that your body reacts to your swing, meaning that you want to hit the ball, but the body may naturally react. I assume you're saying may naturally react to the ball. That's we have two targets, right? We have the ball, and then we have the target we're swinging to. Some students I've worked with really increase their ball striking when they think about, striking down at that ball. Some other students increase their ball striking when they think about swinging out to the target. So this is all, it's so individualized that there's no like universal way to say, hey, everybody should think this way because it works. For me, when I get squirrely, which is more often than not nowadays, unfortunately, I look at the top right dimple and I think to myself, I want my club head to go at like this angle out to in on that dimple. Because what I typically do is I get trapped. I start falling in because I start shaft humping. My club gets so inside that I have to engage my hands, and that's where the rope hooks come out. So that's my go-to swing thought. So everybody needs a go-to swing thought that works for them. I'm not going to teach that swing thought to anybody else because I'll probably snap hook it and I won't be a very popular man. Cookie Monster Blue. Yes, I do like that. I've always thought about that one. Let's see here. Oh, Bluey Blue. Thank you, Tony. Definitely send you an update. Okay, perfect. Glad that helped you. All right. Let's take a look here. Next up, let's play this. Let's zoom in so we can all see this. Zoom in a little closer. Okay, so this is Jose. No notes. All right, so we just have a blank canvas here. Okay, pretty fluid swing there. Let's see face on. All right, let's take a look right at impact, see what's going on here. We have a little bit of a kind of a stack and tilt setup. We go down, we crash into the golf ball, and because of that, yeah, you can already see it here. So this is where his shoulders are. So his center of that shoulder tilt is going to bottom out way over here. So he better start engaging his hands to make up for that. Now, when he engages his hands, obviously the tilting is going to keep occurring, but his hands are feeling that. They're saying, I better go soon to match that centeredness. And if they do start to go, we have to make room for that so we don't strike straight into the ground. So we see our left arm bracing to pull up to give us the spacing to release. And we can see past release here, our hands are pretty close to the center. So we do a pretty good job, but we see those hands had to really activate and fire through. Yeah, so definitely some tilting issues, but the swing overall looks pretty good in terms of sequencing. Yeah, you can definitely see that. So if you were to have a nice full extension, that club's going right into the ground. All right, so this will probably come from this setup here. So we can see this is like that stack and tilt setup that we see a lot of, where it's almost level shoulders, and we see that centeredness now. We see that this is kind of already wanting to promote a downward attack, and it is connected to the center, which is great. And we go down to, all right, so I think this will definitely be a pretty significant change in terms of setup, the feeling of it. If you want to keep setting up like this, you can do that, but definitely move that ball position out so it's, relative to your downward striking angle, so you don't have to fight that. Another alternative is maybe a slight bump of the left hip out, which will then reroute your upper body to be a little bit more tilt, just to allow the spacing. I like the way that you do go down after it from here to here. You definitely getting that upper body to go down to strike on it, but it could be a little bit too much. So you might want to look at that as well too. But that throwing and pulling is just trying to save you, trying to save your hands. Let's take a look at down the line one more time here. Zoom on in. That's me. I'm always pushing the ball and feel my body stuck. Okay, so in terms of you pushing feeling your body stuck, what do you mean by stuck rotation or stuck like in the swing? Just let me know a little bit more on that, please. You've got a really good swing. Yeah, it's just a little bit fighting with let me see. Yes, I do not know how to rotate properly. I don't know. It looks like you do a pretty good job rotation. It just looks like you cram, that move when you go down, because you can see you're rotating. Look, right before you hit impact, your body's square to the target. As you strike it, you're turning and tilting. I just think you run out of room, and it feels like you get stuck at impact, but you don't really get stuck. But if you take a look at your plane work, all right, let's look at your plane work here. It's pretty close to being centered. There's a slight leveling of the shoulders here. And that's going to give you an arm that's low. See how the arms are lower because your shoulder tilt has been lost? And then to feel you getting some sort of, we do tend to try to cross a line to get that feeling of that club reaching the target. So anytime the club crosses a line, now it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because that club now has to fall back in line. And sometimes it'll fall back too much below that plane. And you can see right there, now that club is below your hands. And this is what gives you, a different feeling. But you do a pretty good job of compensating everything. I just think it's a lot of this has to do with that setup, the way you kind of set up for a stack tilt motion, and then you really go down, and now you run out of room to really turn and get through the golf ball. Hands are getting stuck inside and not releasing comfortably. Yeah, definitely. So I think what you need to try and first do is either decide, hey, if you like that downward motion, if you feel like you can give yourself more room, move that ball position more towards your lead side and see if that helps you. If it does not, then you might have to readjust your setup. And, I don't mind seeing people go down. I really enjoy it. But the problem is when you go down and that ball position is not connected to your tilting properly, then you're going to have to compensate somehow. And you do, because you don't want to break your wrist and your club. So that's my recommendation. Give it a try. In swing principles, they look pretty good. Your swing looks pretty solid, other than crossing the line and losing your shoulder tilt. So, but that also could come from that ball position. So you never really know. Change that ball position or change the starting point. And then if you want to look at your shoulder tilting, feel like the shoulder tilting stays perpendicular to your spine longer initially, and then lift the hands a little bit higher to help you get that spacing. So now you can swing and keep the club feeling like it's going down instead of dropping behind you, and then now you're going to be a little bit stuck. So hope that helps you, bro. All right, next up, this one's going to be let's take a look if we can see anything on this. It's going to be challenging. Okay, let's see what the face or the down the line. All right, good, we got a dog there. This is Chris. Is this Chris? Chris, no notes. Okay. We need that dog in my academy to go get some golf balls. All right, so we do see standing up at impact. A little bit of flipping going involved. A little bit more hunched over to start. So we're trying to get comfortable at impact. So let's see right as we get set up. A lot of forward bend going on here. Not a lot of room to work with in your initial takeaway. All right. Yeah, so look at the shoulders already. So the shoulders will definitely want to, hey man, I need some room. Let me just stand up out of this posture. So already we're starting to see that left shoulder get higher. We get to the top of the swing. So the left shoulder, let's redraw that there. So there's your shoulder tilt. If that's your shoulder tilt, naturally, you would want to have a forward bend that's like this. So definitely taller so you can rotate a little bit more effectively. Arms will be lower because of that left shoulder. So we do a good job of staying down in that lower plane line. We're sacrificing some rotation. We're starting to stand up to make room for at least the hands to pass through. So there's not a lot of lower body sequencing. And you can see the shoulders want to keep rotating around this setup. So yeah, this is definitely just not a lot of room to work with. Your body's trying to compensate. Now, you have to look at your misses. If you're able to compensate routinely and you can control your misses, keep doing this. But I don't think this will be easier the longer the club gets, because the more you're bent over, to keep, longer the club gets, you don't want to start swinging more down, because it's hard to get the ball up, if that makes sense to you. You want to swing more flatter so you can start to utilize that bounce and also the club face loft naturally. So I don't know if this is how you set up naturally with a driver, but if you just want to feel like maybe a little bit taller, because this is where your shoulders want to rotate around. Maybe not that tall. So let's redraw that there. So if we go back to your initial takeaway, you can see you're here. So we're talking, how many degrees is that? Let's see if we can do this scientifically. We're doing this like Bill Nye, the science guy. So we're looking at 20 degrees. So you got to just stand 20 degrees taller. Feel the weight more over your arches of the heels. I could imagine that the weight right now really feels, look how much of this body is behind that. So feel like it's, for you, it's probably going to feel like it's more on the toes, but in reality, the hips are going to be over your arches. So you have a lot more room to turn, to engage that turn, because right now it just looks like there's very little turn on the backswing, which will definitely, mess with your sequencing, mess with your potential. So hope that helps you. That face on, it's kind of hard to see just because it's half of you. So if you want to resend that face on, but hey, man, I need to get that dog down at the academy. All the kids will love him. All right, hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. And is this Ian? This is Ian. Found us on Seguro Golf, which I really enjoyed. Would love your analysis on my swing. I'm 60, living in Melbourne. Played around twice a week off of a 8.5 handicap, 100-mile-an-hour club head speed with the driver. Strengths are off the tee. However, I get poor compression with my irons. Was drawn to stack and tilt to get weight more forward and compress my irons, but it still feels like a million miles away. Okay. Yeah, I can see, already I see that that's not quite stack and tilt. So setup, for stack and tilt, you're looking for more setup with the center of your chest, more over the golf ball, even slightly ahead. So let's get this. So there's the center of your chest. It's still behind the ball. Weighting looks about equal. So stack and tilt, I feel like the center is at least ahead of the golf ball. This hip is going to be closer to the golf ball. So everything's kind of preset on that left side, 70%, even more if you want to feel that way. And then you basically stay on that left side as you tilt. Your hips are going to sway a little bit more and your shoulders are going to tilt under. So you stay on that left side and able to drive down to the golf ball. But if you take a look at your motion, we're going to draw a sway line. And we can see that's already that forward press. So we're going to have to address that a little bit later. So as we come on back over, so you do a good job on that sway line, but look at your centeredness. Your centeredness has still kind of swayed off that golf ball. And then you come on back through, it doesn't quite get to, you see that your centeredness is still behind the golf ball. So as you get down to striking it, you're going to have to release those hands and not really compress it. So if you look at your tilting, in this position here, if you would like to feel like a stack and tilt, this centeredness needs to be ahead of the golf ball. So this is where kind of like your V would be of your sweater. And then your shoulder tilt would need to feel like it's doing more of that to make sure we carry that tilting angle down as we strike down into it. It's harder to do with the longer clubs, so you don't want to feel as exaggerated, but you can see where the hands have to let go. You can see your hands are letting go of that angle already here. So we're not carrying as much of that angle, and they're just going to keep letting it go. And you get more like a sweeping motion. This is almost like a driver swing. So I can see why you hit your driver pretty good, because there's your tilting. So ideally the hands, as you strike it, they want to be closer to that line. Now it all depends on how you release that angle. So if you release that angle too soon, your hand speed is going to slow down relative to that center, because as you transfer that energy, the speed of your hand slows down. So this is a natural look for somebody when they get their right hand closer to that right shoulder line, but it's a little bit too much. I mean, if anything, it needs to be there if you want to keep it on that right shoulder, so give you some forward press. But you can just see your whole body's leaning back, so your hands are going to escape up as you strike it. And the only thing to get a downward descending blow is this attempt of you throwing your hands to strike down on it. So we're losing some angles, we're losing potential power. So I can see why it doesn't feel like you're there. So you want to just stay more on that left side to set up. If it's stack and tilt is what you want to do. That forward press, you can see how it is relative to your tilting. It's not too bad, actually. We don't have that much of a forward press. So if you want to set up like this, I think a good goal for you at home, just for Ian here, is to think about your center returning to this yellow line, and that setup will work for you. So top of the swing, come on down, your center stalls out there. So you can see your, I don't know, what is that? Half of your half of the other, what's half of a half? A quarter. So we got to get our upper body more over to match that, to allow you to strike down on it. Let's take a look at your down the line. Ian, are you on? Is this Ian? I don't know. The dog is showing him where to aim. Yeah, that's a good. We need an aim dog. That could be our new swing tchotchke aim dog. I hope it didn't top one into that. Me too, man. All right, so let's take a look at this down the line. Yeah, a little disconnection there. Yeah, it looks like from here to here, say you lose your posture. So, there could be some limitations in your body pulling you out of posture to get that extra rotation. I mean, do you really need that extra rotation? I don't think you do. If those hands can go a little bit higher. So as long as your width is there, as long as you're connected, width and connection, you'll produce some pretty club head speed. This extra bit of rotation and pulling it back. Now we're suffering the same thing where the club is crossing the line because we lose shoulder tilt. Our hands, as a result, are lower. So to get that feeling of being balanced, your club head here is just trying to find your balance point to feel like it's balanced. But now we have to do a little bit of rerouting going on. So we see the rerouting action. It'll fall down below your plane. So your hands are here. The club should be working a little bit more steeper at this point. And now we're coming inside to out. We stall the rotation. We have to get our hands to do what we can to catch that golf ball. So I see a lot of misses here. I see some tops, some heavies, some blocks, some overactive hands to counteract that. Now we get some pulls. So this could lead to a lot of misses. I think just tighten things up. Feel like if you want to go stack and tilt, really commit to stack and tilt, give that a try. Stack and tilt is tough. I used to swing stack and tilt about 20 years ago, and it was really good for me back then. But all of a sudden, my body, lower back was taking a beating, and I couldn't do it anymore. So just be careful. Uh, Ian, is that you, Ian? Okay, perfect. Hey, Tony, thanks. Okay, perfect. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to you, Ian. If you need help in the comment section, just let me know after you've done this for a while. Just go back to the video and leave me a comment. All right, next up. Let's see, who is this? All right, Hung. I'm going to leave that alone. All right. Firstly, thank you very much for your videos and approach in general for cause and effect. That has put things into a different perspective for myself and my swing journey. Good. I've attached short clips of my most recent iron swing below for your reference. Please let me know what you think about it. And if you have spare time, look at my swing progression, as I have 2 hours worth of video, almost all of them down the line. All right. Secondly, I've been researching, reading, and watching a lot of materials on the grip and how it affects the swing, as pointed out by some of your videos on how strong grip requires more body rotation. Yes, more tilting too. So just be careful of that as well. What else here? Be greatly appreciated if you make a video on the different types of grips. Okay, so there is a grip video on there somewhere, and it's not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago. I did a cause and effect on grips. So what I'll do is when I'm finished with this, I'm going to go find that video. I'll link it in the comments. So Hung, if you want to go check out the comments, it'll be on there. But it does talk about the 2 different types of grips and what to look for if you do choose those 2 types of grips. I hope I'm coming up as Tibor. Yes, don't worry, you're coming up. Let me see. You are 2 away. So if you want to go to the bathroom, pop some popcorn, go ahead. You're 2 away. All right, let's take a look at Hung here. Little forward press. How do we work around that? Wow, it's pretty good. Let's take a look at down the line. Okay. Okay, you have good footwork. Things are really good connected from here to here. It's good connection. See how the body and the hands are keeping up with each other, rotating together. You're coming out really good. I love this part. There's no manipulation of the hands. You can see the hands are going along with that journey. So this is really good. Club face is slightly closed here though. So it might be fighting off a block. Excuse me, a pull. But it looks pretty good. I like it. So, you're making this work, and that's a small line. Zoom in. So this looks like a toe-based setup. Let's see if that's right. Yeah, slightly toe-based. Hands are doing a good job. Okay, similar thing here. You can see that this is a common thing, because it's hard to stay in your tilting. When you're toe based, typically the weighting's on your toes and you're bending over slightly more to get toe based. So it's very hard to stay in your tilting because as you take that club back, your body's also trying to keep you balanced, and we start to lose some of this tilting here. So again, we see that shoulder tilt loss relative to your starting position. So there's that shoulder tilt loss. So this isn't going to be exactly 90 degrees, but 90 degrees is probably about there. So we do see a little loss. Now, when you do lose it, you can develop another compensation where your hands go up to make up that compensation to get to that secondary plane line, but you don't. So you go with the turn, which is fine. But now, how do we act? Now, how do we deal with that compensation? So we pull our hands down. We do a great job. Look at the hands going down. So right now, you're really connected to the body. So right here, you can see the body, the club's trying to slot in your 2 plane lines, but because they're a little bit lower, the club's gonna get a little bit lower. So now we're inside the plane line, which is not ideal for an iron. So anytime you're inside the plane line here, this is where path issues come in. And now from there to there, you do a good job though of squaring it out. So we do start to try and rotate through that. Now we do see a loss of spine angle as we do that motion, and so this, again, it could just be your setup. So there's your impact, right? And then there's your starting position. So your body's returning back to where it would like to be. So if this is your starting position and there is here, and that's your impact position, maybe it's just too toe heavy, and you haven't quite developed the compensations to accommodate that to be routine with the compensation. So you can do two things. You can stay with the way you're set up, but then you have to look at, moving that weight distribution as you strike the golf ball more to your heels to allow you to stay in that posture and provide you more room. So then your hands can work more down and then have the room so you don't have to get stuck inside and have that fighting at impact. Or number two, you can change your setup to accommodate your natural top position. That's two ways to look at it. I still think this is a really good move with what you have. It's just a little bit of compensation fight. So look at those compensations, see if that makes sense to you. Let me just see the face on one more time. This is not directly face on, but we can kind of get an idea. Yeah, it's good. It's almost there. It's pretty good. I would say, man, this is a really good swing. Just those subtle changes in your setup could really help open this swing up for you, so you don't have to rely on this last second, catching that club up and bringing it back up on plane right there. If you can carry that angle a little bit longer, and that's just crashing slightly into the golf ball, and that club head gets below your plane, so your hands have to throw a little bit to catch up and get it back on top of that plane line. So there's two real ways to get it from below the plane line to above it is if you stall your rotation slightly and then get your hands the room to catch up, we start losing that angle. Or if you severely just turn and straighten out your tilt, that'll get that club above that plane to help you strike down in it. So just look at those couple things, set up, just make those couple of small changes, but your swing overall is pretty solid. I'm really impressed. So keep it up. You're doing great. Hopefully it makes sense to you. All right. Let's see. Am I up? Yes, you are, Tibor. Let's take a look somewhere here. Where are you? You're over here somewhere. Oh, yeah, two up. Never mind. You are, let's see, is this there? There you are. Okay, so you're two up still. All right, next up, we have Dan. All right, attached with my 7-iron swing, and here is the background. Okay, 43 years old, 5'6", 205. A lot heavier a few years ago, had some hip, knee, and ankle mobility limitations, but overall not terrible. Okay, I've been working on my ball striking consistency and have realized I've been placing the ball way too far forward, causing it to always go left. Yes, that could definitely affect that. Also, your path will always be left. So with the longer clubs, you are bringing in that big banana slice. Current issue, some shots go left. Not sure how much ball position should have changed with each club. Okay, occasionally grounding the club early and topping the ball. Face on view may look a bit skewed since I have not been facing the camera head on. Okay, let's take a look. By the way, Dan, are you on? If you're on, let me know. Okay, not too bad. We do see some steepness issues. All right, let's take a look at face on. Setup's closed, Dan. Yeah, look at that. Definitely pull action going on there. It's going to be a tough one just because it's so ingrained in your neurological system. So hands are very hard to teach because it's just a reaction. It happens so fast. Now your hands are just reacting based on your tilting and based on that ball position. Yeah, well, so if even here you can take a look, let's say where they would keep up with their tilting, you can see how far they're back. This would be, where's your ball position? This would be too much of a forward press for you with that tilting. All right, let's back it up. Okay, so set up here, we see you have almost level shoulders. So, relative to your tilting, the ball position's good, but relative to the actual attempt at striking down and being connected, this is a little bit disconnected. So remember, it's okay to set up with a slight forward press with your tilting. So here there's a slight forward press, but that ball position needs to be relative to a natural tilt. So remember the right hand is lower than the left, so you are supposed to have a natural tilt. Now, if that ball position was moved slightly up here, maybe one golf ball, you can tilt your shoulders slightly so that the right hand is lower to accommodate that tilt, bringing your hands slightly ahead, and then they're still connected to the shoulder tilting, but they're also promoting that forward press. Now, this doesn't seem like much, but it's a big deal because now when you sequence, you're not forcing yourself to stay back with the upper body as much to allow you to strike down on it, because at least here your upper body is still ahead of the golf ball, but you wouldn't want to lean so far forward because your hands will have to go even further. So it does mess with your sequencing a bit, but you're getting away with it because you have pretty good hand-eye coordination. And that's why I say this could be a tough change for you, just because those hands are still going to want to go regardless. Now, setup looks like the right forearm is hovering that left side, which could affect the way the path of the club works. So now all of a sudden, when your forearms are aligned this way, you are going to have a out to in motion to take it back. Club face is opening up to your spine angle, so we do see some manipulation of the hands. So the hands are rolling. When they roll, we might potentially lose some tilt, which we do slightly lose some tilt. So we can see there's just a lot of things going on here. We go pretty far back because we've lost a lot of our tilting. So we've come out of our posture, a lot of rotation. We come on down. We try to use what we have, but that club is working. Look how far that club is on this side. So the club balance point is here. Your balance point is back there. So now the club will have to find that balance point quickly. But because it's working, this way, it's going to fall below that plane line again. Club face is wide open and it's below your plane, which now your hands have to say, let me help you. Let me catch that up. So we see a lot of hand manipulation here. And think about this, the hands are manipulating while the shoulders are still closed. So we're not really utilizing ground forces as best as we can, but they do a good job of tilting past impact. So it just seems like there's a lot going on with the hands and arms. But this is challenging because I can't just expect you to all of a sudden have this swing where it's so, reliant upon this to just say, hey, stop all that, change your setup and just turn with your body, because you probably won't hit the golf ball at all. So this is a challenging one. I would say just look at your tilting when you set up. Try, rewind this and go back to the part where we talked about the intro when you adjust your tilting, that ball position slightly. And for every club, just think about it stays relative to your tilt and the design of the club. So drivers, you don't try and swing down. So your tilting has to be, reactive to where your shoulder tilt is at impact. And since we're trying to swing up, we are going to have more shoulder tilt with the driver. But to complement that, your center of your chest should be well behind the ball so you can stay behind it and use that tilting to move your hands ahead to swing up. With a wedge, we're not going to set up like that. We're going to set up with our center more ahead of the wedge, and our tilting is not going to be that much because you don't want to dig into the ground. So, just a real basic setup check, even a simple alignment check with your forearms to make sure everything's secure. But again, your body's reacting based on all the setup that it's given. So if you've been doing this for a long time, it's going to be very hard for you to just flip a switch and tell your body, hey, don't do any of that stuff because I'm giving you a new setup. So this is going to be very challenging for you, and it requires a lot of non-golf ball swings to kind of get used to a different motion and then slowly introduce a golf ball. So I'll give you a quick story here. Let me catch up here. Let me know what changes to make. I'll try. All right, Dan. I'm using more of a neutral grip with irons and strong with driver. You can do that. It just depends on, stronger grip. If you do have active hands like you do, that's going to be tough too, because, to time that with a strong grip, that's challenging. So you just stick with one grip and keep it universal. You want to make things easier for yourself. And even if it results in you having a steep plane or a flat, who cares? As long as you can repeat it. And that's a question here. Can you repeat this? If you can, don't even bother. Just hit more golf balls so you can get your timing down. Have you seen anyone with the beautiful swing who couldn't crack 100? You'd be surprised. There's a lot of, I would say, a lot of junior competitors that are in our academy that really struggle to score. Like they're so reliant on tech and they're reliant on, figuring out how far you are. I had a junior student in a tournament that we host break out their yardage marker, the rangefinder for a chip from like 15 yards. It's like, what are you doing? So there's just an art form that you can't teach. It's all field based, and I think the more you rely on tech, you start losing that field based. And on the contrary, I've seen people with some horrendous looking swings being able to just score, get the ball in the hole. They figure out a way to get the ball in the hole sooner than others. So yeah, swing doesn't necessarily mean much. It's how you utilize what you're given and playing to your strengths, avoiding your weaknesses. If you can't hit a driver, don't hit a driver. If you can't hit a 3-wood, I don't even carry a 3-wood anymore because I know if I try and hit it, I'm in the pool. I'm in Mrs. Havenkamp breaking her bridge championship. That's not where I want to be. So, constantly monitoring yourself, taking stats. You got to take stats. And if anybody wants a stat sheet, I've got one for free. I'll email it to you. Just take stats so you can see where you're strong at. Okay, so what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the relying on things. So when you take dry swings, that's the time you're teaching yourself new positions, new acceptance. You might have to get into these setup changes hundreds of times without a golf ball just to get used to it. Mirror work, have a mirror in front of you, turn the TV off. You got these huge 80-inch TVs, turn it off. That becomes a black mirror and just work in your living room. But there's one of the reasons I called it the Lion Golf Academy is I believe that these golf balls are little lions and you have to tame them. So if you're not able to tame them, you're going to suffer with them, because when you are learning something brand new, if I'm learning how to walk and I walk with my heels down first, that's my natural tendency to walk. If all of a sudden I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to learn the other way. I'm going to learn with my toes down first. It feels very awkward. And if I do it for months and I get used to it, okay, I've got this down. But the moment a lion jumps out of the bush and chases me, I'm not running away toes down first. I'm going back to my heels because that's what I've done longer. So the same thing with a golf ball. Your body sees a golf ball, it's going to default to how it used to hit a golf ball. So there's no real point of practicing with a lot of golf balls when you have to change so much, because you'll just never win. Your neurological system is going to win all the time. So now you have to look at your ratios. How many practice swings do I need? And how many real golf ball swings do I need? So for somebody like this, if this is my students, I'll say, okay, you've got 10 practice swings and you have to reward yourself with one golf ball swing. Now, when you have the golf ball swing, just swing. And then video that swing and then look at your swing at that time, at the moment of truth. Don't look at your swing when you're practicing, because that's when you need to go through these motions. And that's, once you get better and better, then instead of 10-to-1 ratio, it's now 5-to-1, and then 2-to-1, and then 1-to-1. And then now it's all golf balls, and you can monitor it that way. So that's what I recommend you for everybody, myself included. I hope that helps you. Tibor, am I saying that right? Hopefully I am. My name is Tibor, and I live in Florida. I knew I recognized that. Now, Florida is so fun. I've been to Florida so many times. Recently stumbled on your channel. I like it. Perfect. Thank you. I like your no BS approach. Thank you. Pretty cool stuff, in my opinion. And it's worth a thought and self-check of what's really good for me. Okay. Anyways, if you could analyze my swing, it'd be sweet. I really appreciate it. In these videos, I'm hitting wiffle balls in my backyard. This doesn't look like wiffle balls. I think he sent me original ones, and these are the updated ones. So no real notes on what he's working on. So Tibor, if you can let me know if, obviously this is you, but just let me know like your natural tendencies and we'll take a look. Okay, so originally I just see a lot of hands going back and forth. Not a lot of good utilization on the body. Could come from setup. There's not a lot of room to use. Let's take a look at the face on. Okay, we got that forward press going on. Sway back. Realign the ball position. Okay, we sway forward. Kind of losing the angles because of that forward press. Okay, so if you want to carry this angle right here, like wherever you fall back, like now look at your center. So your center is slightly behind. It's trying to, probably trying to carry some of that angle over, but then you slide back forward and you get back to where you were, but now you got to let go of that angle. So you see we're starting to lose the angle as we strike it. Now we've lost that angle just right at impact. So we see, this to try and add some loft to the golf club, and then you do a pretty good job staying connected here. Down the line, we definitely see some issues with spacing. So if you look at the amount of spacing your hand has between your thigh and the body. So let's see if that gets a little bit better. So we have some spacing there, but is it enough? See what we engage first. We see it's very heel heavy, your setup. So we see the hips opening up a lot to allow some potential room for the hands to move. We are disconnecting right here. So the heels kind of pop open and then they're stuck because we get that right leg pretty straight. And that's hard to keep that rotation going. Top of the swing, we do a decent job of getting the hands really, really connected back again, but they're probably crossed over too much. And then down the line, we see it's fairly steep. And then we start to stand up even more. So we see coming on up to create some room. And we see that exit path. So the exit path is pretty low compared to where they would like to be based on if you can turn. So yeah, two things I would definitely suggest right off the bat is, let's see where this is mostly set up to. Okay, so it looks fairly centered, but there's just not quite a lot of room back here. So I don't know if you have custom club length clubs or if you need them, but these feet should be a little bit further back, a little bit taller to allow some spacing here. And then secondly, from the face on, you take a look at this forward press action. And Tibor, what club is this? If you can let me know. Yeah, you're just getting back to your impact. 7-iron. Okay, yeah, this is just, to me, in my opinion, like this is just a lot of forward press that is really unnecessary. Because if you start connected to your tilting, and you can give like a 3 or 4 degree forward press, that's fine. Well, if you sequence correctly, naturally you're going to get anywhere from 7 to 15 degrees of forward press at impact by keeping your turning and tilting correctly, you're sequencing correctly, because as you drive into the target, your upper body is going to fall back to keep you balanced, and that falling back is going to activate the tilt, which will then get your hands out in front, and that'll get you that forward press that's natural. But if you're starting with so much forward press, if you do turn and tilt correctly and sequence correctly, those hands are going to be way ahead of the golf ball at impact, and you're either going to strike down on it, you're either going to have to stand up to throw to make room, and either way you're going to lose the angles, or you're going to break your wrist or break the club. So you just want to kind of tighten these up, because ideally, if you have this much forward press, you're either going to do one of two things. You're going to close that gap down and get your centeredness to be here, or you're going to fall back about there to carry this forward press so you can swing up. Now, this is great for a driver if you can. You see a lot of long drive competitors do this, where they do have a forward press, but they're able to fall back, put it on a tee that's, Texas tees, and swing way up in there. But this is an iron. So to compensate, you need to get to this yellow line here, but you can't, because you throw your hands even more, because now your center will be way ahead and this forward press will be even more of a forward press. So you're going to have to let go anyway. So this is you're going to lose the angles no matter what you do. So I would really recommend closing this gap down, so we don't need a lot of this forward press. Just feel like the hands, a slight bit of shoulder tilt, which is fine. Hands more connected over here, and get that natural forward press. So now we've controlled that angle to there. So now look at your distance you have to make up. So if you draw a red line and split the gap, which is what you should be doing, look at that. Your centeredness can move very little, but that's sequencing. So now your hands are going to press as you turn and tilt, but there might be some issues that you can't do that because you're a little bit too close as well. So realign this forward press. Ball position's okay. Just give yourself some more spacing from the down the line view and control this forward press. And I think that's going to work wonders for you to give you the spacing so you can utilize your athleticism a little bit better. So hopefully that helps you. Might not be what you want to hear, but it helps you, hopefully. How are we doing on time? Okay, got a few more. All right, next up we have Andrew with no notes. Okay, That's a pretty good swing. Let's see here. Okay, I got it. I'll be working on it. Do I need more space between club and me? Definitely. In my opinion, you do. You know, if you give yourself a little bit more space to allow you to turn and tilt correctly, and you know that might be a reason too that you have to forward press to give yourself any sort of shaft lean because you can't turn and tilt correctly because you're too close. So we don't know which one caused which. It could have been a hybrid. You know, over time you just forward pressed more, and then you know in order to lose the angle, you have to stand closer so you don't turn and tilt. We don't know what caused what. So definitely give yourself more space, realign that shoulder tilt so it's a little bit more, and then just get more natural, man, like you're throwing a ball. All right, this one looks pretty good. Let's take a look at the path and plane. Okay, we have a pretty tight angle to work with here. So how does that look? Posture. Arches of the heels, we're going to split the difference. Okay, it looks fairly balanced. Let's take a look as we take that club back. We don't have a face on with this one, so we're stuck with this one. So we're going to assume that ball position is okay, but it does look like it's favoring the left side a little bit. So we take that club way inside. Let's see how we reroute it. We're losing some shoulder tilt, which will give us a lead arm that's lower. It's going to be deeper, but it's also going to be lower, so the depth is pretty good. Lower, it's going to be, oh, he does really good compensation move there. But now the hand release might get trapped behind it. Yeah, so we can see we're coming more inside too, which will then get the hands to really engage themselves. So he times it pretty well. You know, anytime you have the club working specifically with an iron, now driver's not too bad if you want to do it like this. This is shallowing, right? So with the driver, it's okay to be like this because we're trying to hit up. So you need to be shallower sooner. But with an iron, you don't really, in my opinion, you don't want to be anywhere down over here. That's really hard because now your hands have to really be engaged and figure out how to square that club face up. So there's two ways to save this swing. Number one is we really have to level out our shoulders to help raise the hands. And it's really hard when you're sequencing to go this way to all of a sudden sequence and do this. You're going to fall over. So that sequencing of tilting gets our club lower anyway. So now we have to really engage our hands to save the swing. So he does a really good job of saving it. But can you do it routinely? That's the big question. Just because something looks not right or you know, I don't want to say not right, but just because something looks different doesn't mean it doesn't work. So look at your misses. Look at how big the misses are. Are they costing you strokes? If they are, okay, we have to tighten that up. Now, do we expect him to all of a sudden come steeper so that club is not below the plane? No, it might be a slow, gradual change of, 1 inch every week. And then we'll start to see the misses get a little bit tighter and you can control those misses. So unless you know your statistics, there's no reason to change things unless you know for sure that the swing mechanical flaw affects your scoring ability. And that's the biggest thing, is how does it affect your scoring ability? The old get out the way to hit. Yes. Okay, by the way, been to Joburg, man. That good. I haven't been to Joburg in a while. Got to go back. Oh, finally awake for the stream. Good morning. That's what I mentioned. No matter what your swing is, from an athletic perspective, your body seems to try. Yeah, for sure. So there's great athletes that can just get away with murder because they're really good athletes. I've taught some MLB players, some pitchers that have just been phenomenal. They can get some funky positions. But usually top level athletes are pretty decent golfers. I mean, even what's his name? Chuck. Oh, forget the guy, the basketball guy that would shank everything. Before he got that mental issue with the golf course, he was like a 3 or 4 handicap and something happened. I think he hit somebody and it really messed him up. All right. So what do I recommend for this? Find a way to get that club a little bit more steeper. Your left shoulder does raise up out of necessity, and it could be just because it's comfortable to get to that position. But as you get to this position here, you see your left shoulder, you lose some of the this shoulder tilt. If it's going to be in green here, if you can truly rotate around that tilting, then it would look more like this. So to keep that left shoulder down might be an issue for you. It might not be flexible enough, so you lose shoulder tilt. When you lose shoulder tilt, there's the compensations is your arm is going to be much closer to this line. So now you've got to figure out how to hinge your hands correctly so they don't fall below this line and have to leave you with a last second effort to save it, which will now require a little bit more turning instead of tilting, which you do here. So you can see the turning there keeps them above, but now the tilt comes in and the tilt pushes it back down. So, a couple things you can stretch, you can help to get that left shoulder lower. A couple of other things you can try and do is if you're comfortable like this, just think about the left hand getting higher or the hands getting higher. So now if you do that same compensation, the club won't be down over here. If we get them a little bit higher, at least the club head will be closer to this plane line, which will then change your path and face relationship. So hopefully that helps you. Let's see. Charles Barkley. Yes. Thank you, Stephen. Couldn't think of him. It's 4 a.m. in Sweden. Wow. Very good morning. I think Tom Seguro has taught people to lay off the club off to which when they have a different swing. Yeah. It's when you get that tilting, when you get that tilting so much, you are going to be a little bit steeper. And then you have to feel like you're doing this. So, no knock on Tom. I mean, he's been successful. He's probably had a lot of successful students, but just be careful what you try. Put it that way. All right, last up. Let's see this one. Let me get the notes here. Let's do down the line first. I'll play it while I read. This is Andrew. Oh, sorry. This is Cameron. Been playing golf for 3 years. Have no mobility or strength issues. My swing has been through a lot. I used to come from the inside and had a pretty big two-way miss. I fear that the two-way miss caused me to start swinging more left. Now I only miss right, but sometimes get a bit out of hand. My favorite shot to see is a small fade. And then I hit them sometimes, but it's not as occasional as I like. Is there anything I should work on to get more consistent fade? All right, let's take a look at this fade. Okay, that's a pretty steep angle here. By the way, are you on, Andrew? If you are, that's great. I'm here. Is this you, Andrew? Oh, sorry. I'm looking at Andrew. Cameron. Yes, this is you, Cameron. Okay, sorry about that. What is that in your picture? Is that A1326? Is that our new swing theory? The A1326 swing theory? All right, so yes, we do see a pretty steep motion here. Could you let me know what club this is too, Cameron? I don't see the club. Wow, big range of motion here. Man, you must just pummel the golf ball. Wow, okay. Let's take a look at the face on. Okay, we got a little strong grip. Ball position's pretty good. Okay, that's a good setup there. Okay. 6 iron. Okay. All right. So look like a very strong guy. I don't want to take any strength away from you. So we're going to utilize what you do. So you're a little bit steep. And let's just check this out. It looks okay. Okay, that's not too bad. So our angle's not that tight. Let's see what we do with that angle. Oh yeah, you definitely, okay, good. So you make it up nicely. So you see your center meets that line. So pretty good with that four press, just making it up perfectly. So nothing really concerning there. I would say the number one thing that I see is as you get to the top of the swing right here. So this is a great turn. You've got pretty good separation. Things look like they're in control. Your hands are still doing a really good job of staying centered. They're not, going in no man's land over here. But I think we start to get a little bit too much going on from here to here. So we engage more turn. Right now, if you take a look, when you engage more turn, you see that upper body starting to get ahead. The first move, your upper body's kind of leaning. First of all, it's leaning down. And then you start to move even more right there. So now all of a sudden you're getting a little bit top heavy. So you're steepening out, and then you get top heavy. Now, when you get top heavy and you start to turn, you're going to have a really severe, steep issue going on here. And then you try and straighten it up, and now all of a sudden your hands will have to release that because you're You're carrying such a downward trajectory that you can't really stay grounded and turn and tilt. So you possibly start to stand up too, and you throw the hands to catch up, and we start to see, this left arm break down to allow you the room to throw a little bit early. So it's steepness. But you're a very strong guy. I don't know how far you hit this golf ball, but I imagine you hit it pretty hard. So a couple things you could work on. Setup looks pretty good right there. Like that's all you need. You're here, your upper body's going to be, wanting to level out, so your first move with an iron is you want to try and feel like it's, obviously we're going to drive the lower body a little bit more to the impact. So you do a good job there, but there's not a lot of separation between the lower and upper. So you see how the upper body is like tying the race. So this is like stack and tilt almost without the backswing is stack and tilt. And then you get a little bit cramped. So you have to release that angle a little bit. So I would just recommend, if you can, this is hard to do, but just that's all you need. And from there, now sequence lower body first, let the upper body just, travel with that instead of trying to lead the race to get over there. But really good, powerful motion. Yeah, right there. Okay, yeah, for sure. So you can see that. I mean, look at that right knee, right? So the right knee is just kind of straightening out. Your hip tilt straightens out. There's no real drive from that right knee. It's just like you're spinning out from that post. So this right hip, it's almost like it's just stuck there and it's spinning out, which will give you outside to in, very steep, and then it comes through. So just a little bit sequencing issue, but I think that sequencing issue is definitely caused by this upper body leaning in. So right there. Now, this is a very hard thing to stop because it happens so fast. So I usually try and trick students. So if this was me and you, I would say, okay, I want you to take a full swing and take your hands shoulder height. I'll take a video of you. Take your hands hip height. I take a video of you. I mean in the backswing. And now take your hands so they only get to knee height. And I take a video of you. And I promise you, every single swing, your hands will probably get to about here. Because by the time you think that your hands are moving back here, they're already at the top. So you have to just do a lot of repetitions. If you have a pool noodle, go make something, stick the pool noodle, make some room, move that little cabinet over to the right, go get some duct tape and duct tape a pretty long pool noodle right there. And then have the pool noodle stick out over here. This is a horrible noodle. See how my 3D drawing is. So you have the pool noodle there, right? And just take back swings and make sure you don't hit that pool noodle with your hands. Obviously, that's too low. That's hip height. But maybe put the pool noodle so it's up over here. And just take slow back swings so the pool noodle stops your hands from there. You still want to turn nice with your full body and get used to that being the top of your swing. Because I promise you, somebody of your size and your ability can still pummel the golf ball from here if you sequence correctly, because you're hitting all the lines perfectly here. And you've got a great distribution of weight. Everything's ready to go here. You're leaning still away from the target slightly. So then when you transfer down, you'll get that tilting to kind of match that slightly, which will push your hands out ahead, which will get that forward press. And then you won't have this severe, fishing move where you're trying to cast that line. So let me know how that goes. All right, everybody. That's it. Did I miss anybody here? Nobody there. Okay, so there's no show next week. I'll be down in San Diego teaching. I know there's quite a few of you who submitted swings to me. Have some patience. I'm going to try and do a emergency stream sometime this week. I probably won't even announce it. I'll just go live. So if you're on, you're on. But I want to make sure we get everybody that submitted swings. Keep submitting them to me. The more we do, the better. Would you call us overswinging? Yeah, I mean, to a point. I would definitely call it, swinging where it starts to do a little bit more damage than good. I wouldn't say it's overswinging. I just think you need to control, where that backswing stops to keep your sequencing correct. You can still play good golf with this swing. I just don't know how reliable it can be, which will affect your score. So we just kind of control things a little bit. I wouldn't say it's overswinging because you're just a big, strong guy. So you're using what comes naturally. All right, guys. Other than that, I will see you next time. And I got some videos lined up. I'll probably do some pre-recorded stuff just because I'm gone this weekend. But thanks for the support. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time.